Victoria lived in one of the poorest neighborhoods of the city, a forgotten neighborhood, a neighborhood where the dust stuck to the feet, a neighborhood where all the days looked the same. Here, the houses were made of corrugated iron, sometimes planks, battered walls, old roofs. When it rained, the water entered without asking permission. The houses were tired like the inhabitants who lived there. Every morning people went out early, not out of ambition, out of necessity. They fought to survive, not to dream. But in the middle of this neighborhood, there was something that disturbed everyone. A house that shouldn't be there. It was immense, too big, too clean, two perfect high walls, well painted, a solid fence with iron spikes, a gate always closed, and above all, lights on even at night. While the whole neighborhood went dark because of power cuts, this house shone. A shocking luxury, an almost insulting luxury, as if someone had placed a billionaire's plot in the middle of misery. This house belonged to a woman, Madame Luna. No one really knew who she was. She hardly spoke to anyone. She rarely went out, always well-dressed, always calm, always distant. Every evening, when the inhabitants gathered to chat, the conversation always came back to her. Always. I say she's a Freemason. Look at this house. It's not normal. No, she's surely the daughter of a minister or even a big politician. You're naive? I say she's not even human. Voices lowered when someone said that. Some made the sign of the cross. Others spat on the ground for precaution. In the neighborhood, a rule had established itself naturally. We avoid Madame Luna's plot. We don't stop in front of it. We don't look too long. We pass quickly because according to the rumors, those who approached too close never really had any luck afterward. But in the middle of this collective fear, there was Victoria. Victoria was not physically different. She lived in the same misery, in the same tin house with the same problems, but she had something different inside. She observed, she reflected, and above all, she refused to stay poor all her life. When she passed in front of Madame Luna's house, she slowed her pace. She looked at the height of the walls, the cleanliness of the courtyard, the strange calm that reigned there. Where others saw danger, Victoria saw an opportunity. She didn't know yet that this house was going to change her life. For the worse or for something much more serious still. One morning, like all the others, Victoria walked slowly through the neighborhood. The dust stuck to her sandals. The sun was already beating hard. People passed without looking at each other. Arriving in front of the big house, she slowed down as usual. But that day, something had changed. On the fence wall, right next to the gate, a white sheet was stuck. Victoria stopped. She approached a little more. Her heart began to beat faster. On the sheet, one could read, "Looking for a maid." Below, a phone number, nothing else. No name, no details. Just these simple words. Victoria felt a heat rising in her chest. A job, a real job. She looked around her. To the left, to the right. No one. The neighborhood was calm. So quickly, she took out her phone and noted the number. Her hands were trembling slightly. Then she moved away as if she had just done something forbidden. All day, she thought about this poster. Even while eating, the number came back to her mind. In the evening, when the neighborhood gathered as always, Victoria spoke up. "Today, I saw a poster in front of Madame Luna's house. They're looking for a maid. I think I'll go work there." No sooner had she finished her sentence than silence fell, a heavy silence. The looks crossed. Then a girl burst out. "Are you crazy or what?" Another added, "We saw this poster too. I saw it since the day before yesterday. But I'll never go there." A third whispered, "This woman does rituals." "It's not normal," Victoria sighed. "You always exaggerate. It's just work. And let's be honest, she must pay very well." No one answered right away. Then someone said in a firm voice, "If you want to go there, go alone. We prefer to stay poor than die in that house." Victoria looked at them one by one. She felt anger rising. "You're too scared. That's why nothing changes here." She stood up. "Me. I refuse to spend my life like this. When she got home that evening, Victoria stared at her phone for a long time. The number was there, still visible. She hesitated. Then she said to herself in a low voice, "Tomorrow, I'll call." She didn't know yet that this simple call would take her much further than anything she could have imagined. The next morning, Victoria got up very early. She had hardly slept. All night, the number was spinning in her head. Sitting on her bed, she looked at her phone for a long time, her hands trembling. Then she took a deep breath and pressed call. "Hello, how can I help you?" The voice was soft, calm, almost reassuring. "Hello, I saw the poster in front of your house. I want the job." A short silence, then the voice resumed. "Very well, come by in 2 hours. We'll ask you a few questions. No more, no less." The call cut off. Victoria remained motionless for a few seconds. Her heart was beating hard. A few hours later, she presented herself in front of the big fence. The gate opened slowly, and there, Victoria froze. Luxury cars parked perfectly, an immense blue pool, a garden trimmed to the millimeter. Not a leaf on the ground, no noise. A billionaire's place. She wondered if she hadn't gotten the wrong neighborhood. Then a woman appeared, tall, elegant, dressed simply but classy. It was Madame Luna. She smiled. "Are you the one looking for work?" "Yes, madame." They walked to the garden and sat under a tree. Madame Luna asked questions. "Have you ever worked as a maid?" "Yes, madame." "Are you discreet?" "Yes." "Do you know how to keep secrets?" Victoria hesitated for a second. "Yes, madame." Madame Luna observed her face for a long time. Then she closed her eyes as if listening to something. The silence became heavy, very heavy. Finally, she spoke. "They have accepted you. Your salary will be 400,000 per month." Victoria felt her legs weaken. It was more than she had ever earned in her life. "Thank you. Thank you very much, madame." Madame Luna smiled again. "Come, I'll show you the house." At that precise moment, Victoria felt that her life had just changed. She didn't know yet how, nor at what price. The tour began. Madame Luna walked slowly. Victoria followed, impressed. Each room was more luxurious than the previous one. Immense living rooms, expensive furniture, paintings she had only seen on television. The floors shone. The air smelled good. Everything seemed unreal. Victoria wondered how many years it would take her to even imagine living in a place like this. They went up the stairs, first floor, second floor, then the third. As soon as they arrived in the corridor, Victoria felt something different. She wondered what was really happening in this house. That evening, Victoria made a decision she might never have taken. She had finished her work earlier than usual. The house was clean, silent. The clock showed 5:30 p.m. Normally, at that time, she would have already left the plot. But that day, something in her refused to leave. Her heart was beating hard. Her thoughts were confused. She looked around her. The living room was empty, immense, calm. So, without really thinking, she slipped slowly behind a large, thick curtain near the wall. From there, she could see almost the entire living room. She crouched down, held her breath. Time passed 10 minutes, 20 minutes. The silence was heavy, so heavy that she could hear her own heart beating. Then exactly at 8 p.m., footsteps echoed in the staircase. Victoria felt her body shrink. Madame Luna appeared. She was wearing a long red dress, flowing, elegant, almost royal. Her face was serious, cold, very different from the one she usually showed. She descended the steps slowly, stopped in the middle of the living room, raised her head slightly and said calmly, "Let the ceremony begin." Victoria felt a shiver run through her entire body. A few seconds later, people appeared. Servants. Victoria jumped. She was sure of one thing. They weren't there a few minutes earlier. They set up a large table, very large. They placed dishes. Many dishes, bottles of wine, shiny cutlery, soft music invaded the room. Then, something even more troubling happened. People began to descend the stairs. A man, then a woman, then several others. They were well-dressed, very elegant, visibly rich. They laughed. They talked as if they all knew each other. The living room gradually filled up. Victoria watched, petrified. She instinctively looked at the main door. It wasn't opening. No one was entering, yet there were more and more people. Her breath became short. Did she think? The evening continued. Some ate, others danced. Others still talked around Madame Luna, who smiled proud, seated like a queen. Victoria stayed hidden all night. At one point, dust tickled her throat. She wanted to cough very hard. Her heart almost exploded. She pinched her thigh, closed her eyes, forced herself to hold back. If she made a noise, she knew everything would be over. And after a few minutes of holding back, she didn't. Thank God she managed to hold back. Then, at 5 in the morning, Madame Luna stood up. Silence fell immediately. The guests stood up in turn. All in one voice said, "Thank you for this wonderful day. Madame Luna, see you tomorrow." Victoria felt dizzy. The day she looked around her, outside, it was still night. One by one, the guests went back up the stairs and disappeared without noise, without passing by the main door. When the last one had disappeared, the house became silent again. Victoria stayed hidden for a long time more, trembling. That night, she understood one terrible thing. What she had just seen had nothing normal. And this house was much more dangerous than everything that was said in the neighborhood. A few hours later, the day began to rise. It was 7 a.m. As if nothing had happened, Victoria got up from her hiding place. Her body was tired, her eyes burned, but her mind was even more troubled. She took a deep breath and began to tidy up the house. Exactly like every morning, the plates, the glasses, the displaced chairs, everything she had seen during the night was still there. But she pretended not to know anything. A few minutes later, footsteps were heard in the staircase. Victoria froze. Madame Luna came down calmly. Her face was rested, smiling as after a normal night. "Oh, Victoria, did you just arrive?" Victoria felt her heart skip a beat. She lowered her eyes and answered in a controlled voice. "Yes, Madame Luna, I just arrived." Madame Luna nodded. "Very well, I'm going to my room. Don't disturb me today, okay, Madame Luna?" Madame Luna went up the stairs without asking other questions. Victoria remained motionless for a few seconds, then she continued cleaning. All day, she worked like a robot, but inside, her mind was screaming. In the evening, she finally left the house and returned to her neighborhood. As soon as she arrived, the looks turned towards her. "Victoria, but where were you yesterday? We didn't see you all evening. You disappeared." Victoria swallowed. "I'll explain to you." As usual, the whole neighborhood gathered in the same place. Victoria told everything: the red dress, the ceremony, the people come out of nowhere, the strange words, the night that had been called day. When she finished, silence settled, then someone burst out laughing. "You're imagining things? It was just rich guests," another person added. "You're making all this up because you work for a rich woman and you want us to be afraid to come work. You believe too much in witchcraft stories?" Victoria looked at the faces around her. No one believed her. No one. She went home, heart heavy. Her sister Mia was waiting for her. After listening to her, she sighed. "Victoria, stop prying into people's lives. Sometimes we find things we should never have seen." Victoria remained silent for a moment. Then she raised her head. "Precisely. I must understand what is hidden in this house." That night, she made a decision, a dangerous decision. And without knowing it, she had just crossed the last limit. One day, Victoria couldn't take it anymore. For several weeks, something had broken inside her. She continued to work, to clean, to obey, but her mind was no longer at peace. Every time she went up to the 3rd floor, her gaze was drawn to the end of the corridor as if something was calling her without pronouncing a single word. The gold door. It shone differently from other days. Not brighter but more present, as if it knew Victoria was looking at it. That morning, Madame Luna was locked in her room. The house was silent, abnormally silent. Victoria put her broom against the wall and went up the stairs slowly. Each step seemed heavier than the previous one. Her heart was beating fast, but she continued to move forward as if guided by a force she no longer controlled. Arriving in front of the gold door, she stopped abruptly. She stayed there, motionless, for long seconds. Her hand was trembling, her thoughts were mixing. She remembered very well Madame Luna's words. "You must never open this door." Victoria took a deep breath. "I just want to understand," she murmured. She slowly placed her hand on the handle and opened the door. Behind the door there was not a room. There was not a secret bedroom. There was not even a corridor. There was a forest, a real forest. Immense trees stretched as far as the eye could see. The ground was covered with thick leaves. The air was heavy, humid, almost alive. Victoria felt a shock traverse her. This is not possible. By reflex, her body took a step back, then a second. Her heart was beating so hard that she had trouble breathing. This is not real. It's impossible. She thought of an illusion, a rich person's decoration, a strange game. She leaned slightly forward and observed more carefully. The wind was moving the leaves. An earthy smell rose up to her. She heard distant noises. It was not a set, it was real. Victoria felt fear seize her, but curiosity was stronger. How can a forest be here? She wondered. Her mind refused to accept what she saw. So, to convince herself, she made a decision. She took a step forward, then a second. She completely crossed the threshold and entered the forest. Barely had she taken a few steps when behind her a violent noise resounded. The door slammed shut with a sharp bang. She walked a long time without knowing where to go, without landmark, without hope. At one point she arrived in a sort of clearing. She stopped, lost, empty gaze. "I should never have entered here," she murmured while crying. It was then that she felt presences around her. Silhouettes began to appear. One, then two, then several ghosts. They surrounded her slowly. Their voices mixed, cold and grave. "Where do you come from?" "Terrified," Victoria explained. "The house." "The gold door, Madame Luna?" The ghosts looked at each other. "She is an infiltrator." Before she could react, they seized her and took her further into the heart of the forest. There, on a dark platform, was a throne, and on that throne sat Madame Luna. Her gaze was hard, cold, without any pity. "Get on your knees." Victoria obeyed in tears. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Madame Luna stared at her for a long time. "You disobeyed me. You should never have set foot here." Then she added in an icy voice, "You will never return to your world." "You are condemned to stay here for eternity," Victoria screamed. She cried, but no one listened to her. They took her to a large dark room guarded by two giant lions with red eyes. She quickly understood that the slightest misstep meant death. Inside there were hundreds of people sitting, crying, broken. Victoria approached a man. "How long have you been here?" he answered in an empty voice. 50 years, another murmured. 30 years. A third simply said, "Run." Victoria felt her legs give way. She cried silently. At that moment, she said one thing to herself. This time, it was over. In the neighborhood, days passed and Victoria still didn't return. At first, no one really worried. They said she was working a lot, that she might have slept at someone's place, or that she was simply enjoying her new life. But after several days without any news, the worry began to grow. Her house remained closed. Her sister no longer saw her. No one received a call. So, the inhabitants began to murmur. Even for work, it's not normal. Finally, someone spoke up. "Victoria works at Madame Luna's. Let's go there." The group formed quickly. Neighbors, friends, curious people, and this time they decided to alert the police. A few minutes later, policemen arrived in the neighborhood and headed with the inhabitants towards the big luxurious house. The gate was closed as always. The police knocked. After a moment, Madame Luna appeared, calm, smiling, impeccable. "What can I do for you?" she asked quietly. An inhabitant stepped forward. "Victoria worked here. We haven't seen her for several days. We want to see her." Madame Luna didn't seem surprised. "Victoria, she's not here." The policeman exchanged a look. "We can check the house." Madame Luna tilted her head slightly. "Of course, I have nothing to hide." They entered. The house was silent, clean, perfectly tidy. The policeman inspected the living rooms, the bedrooms, the corridors, the floors. They opened every door, looked in every room, but there was nothing. No trace of Victoria, no clue, no sign of struggle. Then they arrived at the 3rd floor. In front of them, the famous gold door. A policeman asked, "Can we open it?" Madame Luna answered calmly, "Normally, no, but open if you want." The door was opened. Behind, there was only a small, empty room. 4 walls, a bare floor. No window, no exit. The policeman entered, looked around, tapped on the walls. Nothing, absolutely nothing. After several minutes, they came out. The police chief sighed. "Without proof, we can't do anything." The inhabitants looked at each other, disappointed, lost. "Sorry for the disturbance, madam," said one policeman. "We remain available," added another. One by one, they left the house. The inhabitants went home, heavy-hearted with more questions than answers. When the gate closed behind them, Madame Luna remained alone in the courtyard. Her face slowly, a smile appeared, a cold, satisfied smile. Then she murmured, almost amused, "No one will find her." And the house became silent again. After the police and inhabitants left, Madame Luna's house became silent again. Outside, the neighborhood slowly caught its breath. The people had gone home. Disappointed, frustrated, with that terrible feeling of being able to do nothing. But meanwhile, in the other world, Victoria was still a prisoner. Madame Luna went to the strange place where Victoria and the others were locked up. She walked calmly, as if everything had gone exactly as planned. When she arrived in front of Victoria, she stopped and looked at her for a long time. Then she said in an almost mocking tone, "Your neighborhood is looking for you. They came with the police." Victoria's heart jumped. "They were there?" she murmured with hope. Madame Luna sketched a slight smile. "Yes, they searched the whole house. They even opened the gold door." Victoria held her breath. "But don't worry," Luna added coldly. "They saw nothing and they all left." Then she leaned slightly towards her and concluded, "You will never get out of here. Never." Silence fell. Victoria felt her strength leave her, but a question still burned her lips. "Why? Why keep us here? What's the point?" Madame Luna straightened up and answered without emotion. "Every end of year, one of you is sacrificed to the spirit of the forest." Murmurs of fear crossed the prison. One by one, she added. Then she left, leaving behind stifled cries. Guarded by the 2 giant lions with red eyes, Victoria looked around her. Hundreds of people were there sitting on the ground. Some prayed silently. Others had already given up. So Victoria spoke. "We must understand. It's the only thing we have left." A man raised his head, exhausted. "Me, I've been praying for 20 years. God never freed me." A woman added softly, "Here God doesn't hear us," but Victoria didn't answer. That day, she knelt in front of everyone and prayed aloud. She spoke with her heart. She asked for forgiveness. She asked for help, but nothing happened. The silence remained heavy. Then some began to mock. "She still believes. Here, no one gets out by prayer."